Gandhi, Annie Besant, and Edwin Samuel Montagu. Muhammad Ali Jinnah had rivals with different aims. In this awakening of India during the 1914 to 18 war, other conflicting streams of political theory were gaining strength, so that they would overwhelm him temporarily in a few years' time. The first of the rivals was Gandhi, who had established his influence in India within 2 years of returning from South Africa. The two men could not have been less alike. They clashed in mind, temperament, and method. Gandhi, with what Jinnah later described as his vague philosophical absurdities, was a humanist. He had fought for the rights of the Indians in South Africa, but he had also served in a Red Cross unit in the Boer War. He had organized a plague hospital and he had been a stretcher bearer in Natal. During the revolt of 1908, his heart and his soul force usually governed his actions and his reason. Jinnah shunned emotion and sentimentality, yet, in the end, he was to hasten his own death in a cause to which he gave his will and his logic. As passionately as Gandhi led his disciples, with his zeal and his intuition, the difference between them was revealed on an occasion. In the far future, when Jinnah considered that Gandhi had broken a promise, Gandhi claimed that his inner light had ordered his change of mind. Jinnah turned to his secretary and said, "To hell with his inner light. Why can't he be honest and admit that he made a mistake?" In 1907, the extremists in Congress had been expelled. By 1916, Gandhi's influence was such that they had been brought back again. It was this unity among the Hindus under Gandhi that ultimately destroyed Jinnah's larger natural cause. There was another formidable and persistent fighter who shared the scene. At the beginning of 1916, Dr. Annie Besant had begun her Home Rule League, which soon spread throughout India, so that she was able to enlist considerable forces to embarrass the government and hasten Swaraj. In June 1917, Dr. Besant was interned, and out of sympathy for her, Jinnah joined the Bombay branch of the Home Rule League and became its president. He protested against the internment not only on principle, but also because it was an attempt to intern the Home Rule or self-government scheme framed and adopted conjointly by the Indian National Congress and the All India Muslim League at Lucknow. He resented the methods adopted and the attempts that were being made to silence the people of India from carrying on their constitutional agitation. In Westminster, still engaged in the struggle of war, these events in India were overshadowed by issues of deeper significance. On 11 July 1917, Mr. Austen Chamberlain, Secretary of State for India, resigned, following the report of the Mesopotamia Commission, and Mr. Edwin Samuel Montagu was appointed in his place. The new Secretary of State was already informed and aware of India's problems, for he had been Under Secretary from 1910 to 1914. In 1911, he had visited India and declared his opinions on the subject of British prestige. He had said, "We do not hold India by invoking this well-mouthed word. We must hold it by just institutions, and more as time goes on by the consent of the governed." Jinnah welcomed the new appointment and said that the selection gave the people of India great satisfaction. But he added a condition. Before Mr. Montagu sets to work at his task, there should be, in my opinion, a general amnesty declared and all those interned as political prisoners released. Edwin Samuel Montagu had inherited from his predecessor in office a document of great importance, on which Mr. Chamberlain had been working for some time, with the help of Lord Curzon. On 20 August 1970, Mr. Montagu revealed the terms of this document to the House of Commons. In a declaration of the Indian policy to be adopted by the government, he said, "The policy of His Majesty's government is that of increasing the association of Indians in every branch of the administration and the gradual development of self-governing institutions with a view to the progressive realization of responsible government in India as an integral part of the British Empire. Progress in this policy can only be achieved by successive stages. The British government and the government of India, on whom the responsibility lies for the welfare and advancement of the Indian peoples, must be the judges of the time and measure of each advance. And they must be guided by the cooperation received from those upon whom new opportunities of service will thus be conferred and by the extent to which it is found that confidence can be reposed on their sense of responsibility." There is no record of Jinnah having made any public comment on these proposals for gradual administration by Indian ministers. He was at the time concerned with a personal equation. He had been on amiable terms with Lord Hardinge, the previous viceroy, but he did not like Lord Chelmsford, who had succeeded in April 1916. He thought him cold, a fault he could scarcely damn in anyone. This dislike influenced his conduct and his speeches. Before a big audience in Bombay in July 1917, he chided Lord Chelmsford for his apparent apathy and said that he hoped his words would penetrate the rarefied atmosphere of Simla, the Viceroy's summer headquarters, where he was maintaining a studied silence at a time when India was stirred to its very depths. Lord Chelmsford was observing the awakening of young India with consciousness and sympathetic concern. As he worked in the rarefied atmosphere of Simla, little more than a year after Jinnah had complained of his studied silence, he wrote to the king, "We have here an educated class, 95% of whom are inimical to us, and I venture to assert that every student in every university is growing up with a hatred of us. These are, of course, at present a mere fraction of the population, but each year sees the numbers augmented, and it may well be imagined that their potentialities for mischief are infinite. If we can win these men over to our side, I am convinced that we can only do it by inviting and enlisting their cooperation." This was the view of the Viceroy, who collaborated with the Secretary of State in drawing up the Montagu-Chelmsford report, which became the basis of the Government of India Act passed in 1919. In November 1917, Mr. Montagu travelled to India to make his own observations and to meet the leaders of the various political parties, whom he ultimately extolled in his diary. He wrote of Dr. Annie Besant, who had been released from internment 2 months before, in her white and gold embroidered Indian clothes, with her short white hair and the most beautiful voice he had ever heard. He thought her very impressive, and he wrote, "It is her activity and her Home Rule League which has really stirred the country up into a condition in which it is no longer true to say that political interest is confined to the educated classes." He wrote also of the renowned Gandhi as a social reformer, with a real desire to find grievances and to cure them, not for any reasons of self-advertisement, but to improve the condition of his fellow men. Mr. Montagu added, "He dresses like a coolie, forswears all personal advancement, lives practically on the air, and is a pure visionary." His description of Muhammad Ali Jinnah was the most penetrating of the three. He wrote, "They were followed by Jinnah, young, perfectly mannered, impressive looking, armed to the teeth with dialectics, and insistent upon the whole of his scheme, all its shortcomings, all its drawbacks. They elected members of the Executive Council, the power of the minority to hold up legislation, the complete control of the executive in all matters of finance. All these were defended as the best makeshifts they could devise short of responsible government. Nothing else would satisfy them. They would rather have nothing if they could not get the whole lot. I was rather tired and I funked him. Chelmsford tried to argue with him and was tied up into knots. Jinnah is a very clever man, and it is, of course, an outrage that such a man should have no chance of running the affairs of his own country.